So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto and Harry Potter. S0 Let's start the series. With her hood drawn over her head, Narcissa strolled along the street. In addition to shielding her from the rain, it also served to conceal her identity. These days, who knows who's watching? Before Draco returned to Hogwarts, she had left his house to study for a while. Probably for the past year. She taught a young kid named Draco how to ride a broom. The boy she looked after and reared. The young man who looked after her while his father was away. Her son was told to murder a man. Not just any man, but a man who was well known. Someone whose demise guaranteed the Dark Lord's triumph. Still too young at 16, Draco Malfoy was given the order to assassinate Headmaster Albus Dumbledore or face consequences. Draco required assistance, regardless of his desire. Narcissa glanced up at the damp structure before her. It resembled every other building in the area. Approximately 3 floors high, and decorated with brown brickwork. The front knocker appeared to be made by hand from steel. As directed in a letter, she raised her hand and knocked 5 times. After waiting and mentally counting to 5, she leaned to the door and whispered one question. It was just loud enough to be heard by the person behind the door. She questioned, when is it best to strike? She will leave right away if she doesn't receive a response or receives the incorrect response. The response from the other side of the door was, when the moon's back is turned. With a sigh of relief, Narcissa took a courteous step back as the door opened. There was a man with blonde hair that was incredibly dazzling. Her husband's hair, in her opinion, was as brilliant as a blonde could get. The remainder of his face was pretty attractive, and his eyes were a vivid blue. A dark blue long-sleeved shirt, tightened in 2 places, and matching slacks, bunched up near the bottom, constituted his outfit. There was a metal plate beneath his vivid yellow bangs. It contained a strange swirl pattern. One from a village she had never seen before. He smiled and moved aside, saying, "Please, come in, Malfoy-san. We have tea ready for you." Narcissa gave a courteous nod. He spoke with an accent that she could definitely hear. He sounded as though he had just been using English for a month or so. "Thank you," she replied. "Also, I thank you for accepting my request for aid. You have no idea how much this means to me." As Narcissa removed her damp coat, the man grinned and extended a hand. He paused as if unsure of how to continue, saying, "We're happy to help. Come in so we can get properly." A younger voice from just down the corridor said, "Acquainted." The man laughed. "Thank you, 6th headmaster. And yes, properly acquainted." As she followed the man down the hall, Narcissa grinned. 3 children were seated in a tiny sitting area when they arrived. They all appeared to be around the same age, roughly a 4th-year student. Perhaps younger. Additionally, each of them had a similar metal swirl on their forehead. A boy instantly got up to welcome her, saying, "My name's Uchiha Tobi, miss." He had one dark black eye and a tangle of black hair. He had several scars on the right side of his face and a black eye patch covering his left eye. Even with those kinds of scars on his face, the brightness of his smile was unsettling. Narcissa accepted his extended hand and gave him a soft smile. How did this youngster obtain those in the past? She was aware that it was none of her business, but... "Don't worry about the scars, miss. It was just a little accident," the child continued to say with a bright smile. He was dressed in orange and dark blue. Black jeans, a mesh top underneath, and a jacket. The girl came next. "My name's Noara Rin." "Pleasure." Her eyes were lovely brown, and her hair was shoulder length. There were 2 rectangles of purple on her cheeks. Some kind of mark. She had a white apron-like garment around her waist that hung down to her knees, and she wore a black blouse with sleeves that reached her elbows. This apron/skirt thing was underneath black shorts. Before addressing the last child, Narcissa gave her a grin as well. Without even attempting to sound upbeat, he stated frankly, "Sixth headmaster." Like Toby, his metal headband was angled to conceal his left eye. His hair, which had a silver/gray appearance and swung slightly to the left, defied gravity. His right eye appeared nearly soulless. It was blank, not sad or empty. Although Narcissa was accustomed to the appearance, it was a little unsettling to see it on a youngster of this size. He was dressed in dark blue short-sleeved shirts and knee-length jeans. He had some kind of lengthy black gloves with metal armguards on his arms. 2 leather bands which formed an X across his chest were attached. The little sword on his back was most likely held in place by that. Toby returned to his seat at the table and stated, "He's a jerk. Don't mind him." Narcissa turned to face the adult after nodding and grinning at Sixth Headmaster. "And I'm Namikaze Minato, the captain of this team," he laughed. He gestured to one of the 2 vacant chairs and said, "Let's get down to business, shall we?" At King's Cross Station, Harry Potter was happy to board the red train. Molly Weasley began to sprint along the track, and he glanced over his shoulder at her. "Be good," she advised. Before she and her husband were out of sight, she waved, "And stay safe," to her followers. To him, Molly Weasley resembled a mother. His aunt wasn't very good, and his own mother had passed away. Thus, he had the redhead woman. Molly was the mother of both his whole family and his best buddy, who was in his year. Harry felt and saw the blatant looks as he made his way down the train. Nobody even made an effort to conceal it. It used to be bad because he was well known for his name and scar from the time he was a child. The Living Boy defeated the Dark Lord and restored harmony to the wizarding community. Harry was a crazy fool last year. Ought to be imprisoned. Was preparing to fight the Ministry with an army. This year, however, it was because he was a hero once more. A child who defied Death Eaters by breaking inside the Ministry of Magic. The chosen one was now him. Losing his godfather was his prize. And blatant looks. Ginny Weasley had a date with her boyfriend Dean Thomas, despite his attempts to encourage her to sit with him. Harry wasn't sure if he was still her boyfriend. Compared to him, she has had more relationships. "Hi, Harry." He saw an old friend when he turned around. Longbottom, Neville. That evening, Neville was also present. Along with him, he broke inside the Ministry and demonstrated his might by defeating a Death Eater. "Hello, Harry," a blonde female behind Neville remarked. "Lovegood Luna. She was at the Ministry, too." Everyone thought she was insane. Discussing things that no one could see and invisible animals. "Hi, Luna," said Harry. "How are you?" The girl grinned and said, "Very well, thank you." She had a magazine in her hands. One in which her father served as editor. Quibbler. Harry has a soft spot for the Quibbler. Earlier, he conducted an exclusive interview with them. He said, "Let's find seats, shall we?" And the 3 of them started to move. After a few paces, a compartment door suddenly sprang open directly in front of Harry, and a lad staggered out, landing with his back against the solid surface behind him. He was wearing an odd outfit. Even for wizards and muggles. He had a black box-like object strapped to his leg and a pouch on the back of his belt. There was a metal headband of some kind on his forehead. He began yelling in a foreign tongue while glaring at the person inside the container. The tone of his speech and the stare suggested that Harry's inability to understand him was probably for the best. The boy took something, not a wand, out of his pocket, and Harry just stared in bewilderment. A voice sounded from inside the container, just beyond of Harry's line of sight, before he could see what it was. "Incarcerus." "Sixth Headmaster," exclaimed the youngster, who was now restrained. That was how it sounded, anyway. It was a thick, alien accent. It might have been a name, a word, or a spell. Harry was unaware. A girl emerged and said, "Oh. We are very sorry," in choppy English. She carried the youngster back inside the compartment after picking him up while he was restrained. She had dark eyes and short brown hair. There were 2 odd marks on her face. The door shut once the girl vanished into the chamber. Harry glanced to Neville, who appeared just as perplexed. Luna was peering at the closed door with her head cocked slightly. Harry started walking again and asked, "Notice anything, Luna?" They couldn't have been freshmen. They were unable to learn such charms. He was certain Hermione had picked it up in the 3rd or possibly 2nd year. However, that was Hermione Granger, the most intelligent witch of her era. He was speaking in Japanese. I couldn't pick up most of the words, but it wasn't nice. Luna said. Calmly, she remarked, and that was a blade he had pulled out. A knife, began Neville. What in the bloody world did he have a blade for? I don't know, Luna answered coolly. Maybe it was because he was knocked out of the compartment. Harry questioned, "Do you think that's what happened?" He was pushed out of the compartment. Well, maybe. Or he fell. It's none of my business. Harry gave a nod. He hesitated when he noticed the container was empty and said, "Yeah. Thank goodness." Before he took a seat across from Neville, with Luna seated closest to the window, he assisted everyone in getting their trunks in the overhead. After everyone had calmed down, Trevor attempted to escape once more while Neville and Harry were conversing. Neville was left searching for his toad behind the seat. He could hardly recall the arrival of the 4th-year females. The girls quickly withdrew after they offered him a seat in their compartment, to which he replied icily, "They are my friends." He does recall the moment the container was unlocked by a girl. The girl was the same as previously. You mean a transfer student? There was only a slight increase in the volume of her breathing. It's likely that she has been racing down the train from an unknown location. I'm supposed to deliver these to Neville Longbottom and Harry Potter, she asserted as she gave the 2 lads the parchment scrolls. She grinned and said, "See you there," before taking off at a fairly brisk pace. Before Harry had even opened it, Ron exclaimed, "What is it?" and attempted to read it. For some reason, Harry thought her English sounded much better. Perhaps a charm? Or was it previously an act? An invitation? Harry asked, perplexed. Neville inquired, "Who's Professor Slughorn?" Harry read, "New professor," and moaned. It appeared to be lunch in compartment C, we might as well go. Neville didn't get up and appeared perplexed. What's he want with me? I can understand you. But why me? No idea, Harry said honestly. Then he got a notion relating to an earlier conversation on Malfoy's unusual behavior. Let's go under my invisibility cloak. Get a peek at what Malfoy's doing on our way. But the quest was in vain. The corridor was filled with people. Wearing the cloak made it impossible to move. He had put it away securely before moving on down the hallway. As he went by, people hurried out of their compartments to watch him. Except for Cho Chang, who instead dashed into her compartment. When they entered compartment C, Harry could see he and Neville weren't the only ones invited. "Harry, boy," said Slughorn. Harry sensed that, of everyone present thus far, he had received the warmest welcome. Good to see you, he said, turning to face Neville. "You must be Mr. Longbottom." Harry noticed that Neville was clearly anxious and most likely afraid. Harry then turned to face the other people in the room. He recognized Ginny, but couldn't figure out why she was also present. And a boy in his year who was Slytherin. As Slughorn started to introduce everyone, Harry hardly noticed 3 individuals creep in stealthily. They strolled without making any noise with their feet. Once more, it was the 3 children. The kids who are transferring. Harry started questioning everyone at the table, ignoring Slughorn. When the silver-haired boy spoke, the other 2 would answer. They appeared to be rehearsing something. Harry! Where to begin with you? Slughorn smiled as he approached Harry. The older man then launched into a protracted tirade. I remember when well after that terrible night Lily James and you survived, and word is that you must have powers beyond the ordinary dash. Zabini, a Slytherin, coughed in what was clearly trying to be amused skepticism. And he heard the irate voice respond. Ginny scowled at the Slytherin and said, yeah, Zabini. Like you're so talented at posing. Harry closed his eyes and sighed. I know you said we should practice our English, but anyone could hear us. Over him? No way. Ma. Fine. When Harry opened his eyes once more, the children were conversing. English was their first language, but later they returned to Japanese, Luna said. He went on and on about additional stories and famous wizards that Slughorn had taught, saying that he would rather listen to the children now than Slughorn. One of these children walked up and cleared his throat, and Harry finally started to listen. The boy with gray hair was the one. As if they had only discovered the children were present, the room fell silent. Ah! I forgot you kids were here. Slughorn said as he hurried over to them, getting up a little too quickly. Harry observed they all took half a step back. Everyone, these three are transfer students from Japan. Anyone know where that is? It's on the other side of the Asian continent, Ginny replied. Or something like that. Slughorn gave a nod. Good. Good. These guys may look small, but they are amazing at their magic. It's completely different than ours. Wandless, most of it. As though to remind the professor of something, the boy coughed a little. Ah, yes. This is sixth headmaster. He's what you'd call an prodigy, from what I've heard. Very powerful for his young age. Harry could tell that the sixth headmaster was quite bored now that he had a better look at him. The only thing visible was his right eye. His metal headband obscured his left eye. He wore a black mask from his nose down. His black jeans hung just beyond his knees, and his sweater appeared to be too large for him. As Slughorn moved on to the next child, the sixth headmaster just nodded in greeting. The black-haired boy who had tumbled out of the room. This boy is Tobi Uchiha. He comes from a very powerful bloodline, from what I'm told. But, the poor boy lost his eye in an accident. Tobi seems to be somewhat dissatisfied with the final section. In fact, he appeared unhappy. The child appeared anxious, with Slughorn's palm resting on his shoulder. He was not happy. The black cloth covering Tobi's left eye escaped Harry's sight. It matched his headpiece, apparently. He seemed to want to add more, but Tobi and the sixth headmaster were frowning at him. And last, but not least, is Rin Noara. Her wandless magic is amazing, despite her family not being as powerful as Tobi's. He had his arm around the very uncomfortable-looking girl. She had on a white skirt and a black shirt. It's similar to a standard uniform. It's getting dark already, Slughorn said hastily as he returned to the table after continuing to chat and irritating Harry even more. You'd better go off and change into your robes. Neville and Ginny followed Rin and Tobi as Harry got up and walked away. It appeared that the sixth headmaster was not with them. So glad that's over, Neville whispered. Yeah, said Harry. He gently shifted the conversation away from their new professor and asked, how come you ended up in there, Ginny? He saw me hex Zacharias Smith, Ginny shrugged. He kept asking what happened at the ministry until he annoyed me and I hexed him. Harry grinned at his younger companion. Thought I was going to get detention when Slughorn came in. When in fact he invited me to dinner. Mad, eh? Ginny replied with a grin. The feast has just concluded, and a new year at Hogwarts has begun. The sky was lovely, and the conversation was friendly. Albus was about to go to sleep when he woke up to find pupils running around and becoming disoriented. Harry's 6th year had begun. Didn't he want to be an Auror? He hoped Harry would be able to follow that course, doing what he wanted and leading a long, happy life. Headmaster. May I have a word? Glancing over his shoulder, Albus saw it was Severus, along with 3 small children. He recognized the Mahodakaro transfer students. "Hello, you 3, Albus replied politely, receiving a nod and 2 grins in reply. He nodded, looking at Severus. "Of course, Professor Snape. As you probably know, these are the 3 transfer students. Toby Uchiha, Rin Noara, and 6th headmaster," Severus introduced, pointing from left to right. "I'm assuming you have evaluated them and can determine their position," he asked, carefully examining each of the 3 kids to ascertain which house they were in prior to Severus informing him. He trusted Severus' judgment on this specific matter, even though normally he would want the sorting hat to handle it. Snape gave a nod. "Yes. They are all NEWT level students and all in different houses. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, and Slytherin." Toby appeared to be thinking about something, but Albus glanced down at the 3 children who were keeping quiet. He said, "Do you have a question, Toby?" After giving a nod, Toby looked at the 6th headmaster. "Well, you asked if he evaluated us. We didn't take any test that I was aware of. So how did he evaluate us?" Albus grinned. "Very inquisitive, aren't you? That's good. I cannot say exactly what Severus did, but I trust his judgment." Toby and Rin grinned as the 3 of them exchanged glances. He couldn't tell if the 6th headmaster was grinning. Not with the large mask that obscured more than half of his face. He took the initiative to address the issue before it even arose, saying, "6th headmaster." The boy's single dark eye was fixed on him. "Hi. You might be asked to take off your mask and lift your headband. I can tell you might not want to, so I need to hear why they are there in the first place." The 6th headmaster gave a nod. His eye fell, indicating to Albus that this was a very painful topic. "My headband is covering a large scar from an accident." With a much heavier tone than before, he went on to explain, "I can't see out of that eye, so I keep it covered. Same with Toby, by the way." Albus gave a sympathetic nod. "And your mask?" Toby snarled, "He never takes it off," before the silver-haired boy could respond. Rin laughed and said, "I think he's just shy." The 6th headmaster turned and gave them a fierce look while yelling at them in Japanese. "Will you two shut it?" "But we can loosen up, Bakashi," Toby answered. Rin grinned and said, "He's right." With a sigh, the 6th headmaster turned back to face Albus. "I can change out this mask for a medical mask," he said. Albus gave a nod. "Okay. I believe that will suffice as a compromise." "I will show to his new dorm," Severus declared. "I will give him a standard 6th-year schedule tomorrow. I will show Miss Noara and Young Uchiha to their common rooms." Albus grinned. After exchanging glances, the 3 nodded and started to move apart. Toby said, "See you at breakfast, got it?" 6th headmaster remarked, "I expect to hear everything," and Albus was certain the youngest was grinning. "You have a good night, headmaster." "You as well, Snape." "Hey, Harry. Harry Potter." Neville was standing in front of an empty bed when Harry raised his head and peered through his curtains. He said, "What is it?" While the others took their places in the chamber that had been there for years, he had been sitting on his bed, hidden behind the scarlet curtains. "This bed appeared here. Do you know what it's about?" Harry gave a headshake. He swung his legs off his own bed and got up, saying, "No. Why would there be an extra bed?" The room did appear somewhat larger now that he was not in bed. He hardly noticed the difference. Seamus asked from his bed, "What are you two blokes talking about?" "Something about an extra bed next to Neville's," replied Dean. Ron stuck his head out and inquired, "An extra bed?" "Blimey. A bag is there at the foot of it as well." Seamus responded, "Let's open it and see what this is about," and stood up. Dean grinned and said, "I'm all for it." Neville remarked, stooping to retrieve the bag, "I don't think we should." Their trunks were around the same size. It appeared to be a sports bag used by athletes. But larger, you know. Seamus rushed around Neville to grab the zipper as he placed it on the bed. "Ow!" He abruptly leaped back. Ron inquired, "What did you do, Neville?" "It wasn't me," Neville exclaimed, raising his hands in the air. "The bag is enchanted, Baka." The room instantly became quiet. "It's you!" Neville gestured. "What are you doing here?" The boy from the train was the one. The one who spoke Japanese and was hurled from his cubicle in front of Harry. A black fabric was covering his left eye, something he had not noticed previously. Similar to an eye patch. "Boys, this is your new roommate. He's a transfer student from Japan," remarked McGonagall. Ron muttered, "You're here too," as though he was still processing the information. "I see you've already met each other. Longbottom, Potter." Neville nodded and said, "Yes. But we never got his name." "Uchiha Toby," the boy grinned in response. "Best student from Mahudakoro you will ever see," he exclaimed, giving the older Gryffindors a thumbs up. Harry suspected that wasn't the case. Before her footsteps vanished down the stairs, Professor McGonagall murmured, "Best get to bed. Weasley, I expect you to help him tomorrow as prefect." The room was silent. Toby's single visible eye was scanning the room. He is still standing directly in front of the door. For what seemed like an hour, this went on. Toby grinned and closed his eye. "I have a feeling this is going to be a great year." Seamus waved his hand and said, "Do what you want. I'm going to bed." Toby smiled and said, "Hope it's not burned too badly." Seamus rolled his eyes. Yeah. Dean chuckled. "You gotta teach me how you did that." Pulling out his wand, Toby jumped to his bed and landed next to his suitcase, saying, "Sure. It's a simple spell." He avoided getting burned by grabbing the zipper. Harry moved closer to have a better look. Toby ripped off some kind of sticker and said, "Where I come from, there's not just wand magic like charms and whatnot. This is, I don't know what it's called in your language. But I call it Fuinjutsu." It was written in black. When Dean said, "That's Japanese writing, I can't write in Japanese." "It's not that hard," Toby blurted out. "See? It's just a circle with a thing drawn in it. This means fire. So other things like water, wing, lightning." Harry remarked, "You're talking about elements?" "Yeah," grinned Toby. "And because this is fire, the boy over there was burned when he tried to open it without my permission. These lines are specifics. Like what it's supposed to do." He yawned and continued. Toby made a quick, explosion-like gesture with his hands and said, "This right here basically says only I can open it. And this here says it's keeping it closed. Not, when it opens." Ron said, "Explosion?" "Yeah," Toby said, nodding. "I think. Fiery, Pa," he said, making the hand gesture once more. "So explosion or just catching on fire?" "We should get to bed," Neville replied. Breakfast doesn't last forever. Even if some of us have a free period afterward. Neville's right. We can pester you with questions at breakfast. Dean gave a nod. Toby put the sticker back inside his bag before closing it again and nodding. Okay. By the way, I'm not a morning person. My friend usually has to drag me to places so I get there on time. I'll wake you up, Neville said. Toby nodded as she gave him a glance. Okay. I trust you too. Night then, the other boys said, closing the curtains. Draco fixed his gaze on the boy in the bed across from him. No one could see his face since he was facing away. He had removed his headband, and Draco had noticed a big scar across the child's eye. To be honest, it was worrisome. At the moment, Crab, Goyle, and Zabini were discussing the child in loud whispers. The sixth headmaster. The child was bandaging his eye in the meantime. If you have a question, you can ask, she remarked coolly. Draco, who was also wearing a white surgical mask, turned to face them as he heard the murmuring cease. Perhaps there was also a large scar there. It's just, I'm confused as to why you are here. Professor Snape had explained the situation, I thought, replied. What are you confused about? Just. Goyle remarked, you look too young to be here. Turned to face the taller boy. As if it were clear, he stated, Professor Snape assessed my abilities and thought it appropriate for me to be here. Yeah, I get that. But what kind of skills? Closed his eye and tiled his head. He opened his eye and looked about, saying, wandless magic. I have an almost perfect memory. And am very good at dueling. Any other questions? Professor Slughorn did say you were a prodigy. How much of a prodigy? Replied Zabini. He moaned, oh yeah, he did that. I'm no more of a prodigy than anyone else I know. It's just I started out at a younger age than most. Why did you start earlier? How early? He held out his fingers to illustrate his point, saying, most start at 7. I started at 5. I just have more experience, so people call me a prodigy. He laughed. Not questioned, why did you wrap your eye in bandages? Accident, he replied, appearing relieved that the topic had changed. Why is your face covered? Accident. What's Japan like? Beautiful. Were you the only transfer student? No. What's your family like? Loud. This time, the response was much later, but it appeared to be overlooked. Do you have any siblings? Sure. Are you tired? Yes. Draco laughed. We should head to bed then. Please, nodded. One more question, inquired Zabini. Sighed. What is it? Can I call you sixth headmaster? Sure. You can call me Vincent then. Crabbe exclaimed. Gregory. Goyle gave a nod. Theodore. Nott grinned as usual and gestured to his chest with a thumb. Blaise, said Zabini quickly. At his turn, the blonde exclaimed, Draco. Welcome to Slytherin, sixth headmaster. With a nod, the sixth headmaster closed the green drapes. The response Draco barely heard over the others saying good night was, Arigato, Draco. Susan Bones smiled and said, so, Rin. Tell us about this picture. Rin chuckled, hey. How did you get that? She was initially concerned about the loss of privacy in this situation. However, she ignored it after realizing it was harmless. It was in the front pouch of your bag. The head girl ushered Rin in with a warm greeting. While the females were unloading, the bed had materialized. Megan Jones was overjoyed when the younger girl arrived. She gave Rin a hug and a pat on the head. She led Rin to the vacant bed and began speaking at the speed of sound. To soothe the girl, Susan and Hannah had to cooperate. Rin remained frank and upbeat even after that. She was placed in Hufflepuff, which was understandable. Okay, Rin replied. She grabbed the framed photo back and held it carefully because it might break at any time. I'll tell you. You're probably going to meet them at some point anyway. Rin remarked, this is my family, sort of. She gestured to the blonde man who was leaning over and grinning broadly, saying, this is Minata-sensei. He's like our father. What do you mean, like your father? Did he adopt you guys or something? Replied Hannah. Rin gave a shrug. Yeah. I guess. Megan exclaimed, that's so sweet. What about the boys there? Yeah. Look at them. Glaring at each other like that. Rin gave a nod. Yeah. They get into fights all the time. This one is Toby. He was put into Gryffindor. You mean they came with you? Rin nodded, yeah. I can't wait to meet them. Who's the other boy? The answer was sixth headmaster, Rin said. He was put into Slytherin. Ah. So you were all separated. How long have you guys been together? As a family. Megan responded. Wow, it's been a long time actually, Rin replied. Ever since we were kids. About 7 or 6 years old. That is a long time. You already said you were 14, right? Rin replied. So that's 7 or 8 years, right? You know, if Toby or sixth headmaster were older, I'd love to get together with them. Not everyone can say they kissed a Japanese boy. Megan, exclaimed Rin. Those are her brothers you are talking about. Hannah said, her laughter too obvious to conceal. Rin went on, they're younger than you. Not by much. Just a year younger. Rin corrected it, saying, 2 years. What? They're 14. Just Toby. Sixth headmaster's still 13. He doesn't look it. Rin waved her hand and said, forced perspective. Susan yawned and said, hey, guys. Classes start tomorrow. We should go to bed. Hannah groaned, yeah. You're right. Megan leaped off Rin's bed and onto her own, grinning. Can't wait to go to classes with you, she said. Rin shut the drapes. She laughed lightly and said, good night, guys. The other girls yelled, night, as well. Look at this, exclaimed Toby. His lone dark eye seemed to glow in the golden candlelight he was gazing at. The candles are floating, he said. However, there was something peculiar about the reflection. Away. The illumination appeared more radiant than his eye's inherent luster. Perhaps it was simply its dark hue. Yeah. Were you not here for the feast yesterday? Ron responded. Toby gave a headshake. Nope. He appeared to be a typical student, clad in the Hogwarts uniform. His headband and covered eye were the only peculiarities. He wouldn't remove those. I was with my friends getting our personal introduction, I guess, to Hogwarts. Hermione looked around to see the flash of metal and said, let me guess. Your friends are wearing the headband as well. It shouldn't be too difficult to identify. Toby glanced around and said, yeah. At least, they should be. His lips became a narrow line as he added, you should meet them. Well, maybe not sixth headmaster, he's a jerk. He had been told to resume the juvenile rivalry he and sixth headmaster had shared in their younger years. Ron chuckled. You said he was in Slytherin, right? I'd expect him to be mean. The whole lot of them are gits. Hermione sighed and shook her head without objecting. Ron. Come on. Let's just sit down so we can get our schedules. As Harry and Ron parted ways to move on opposite ends of the table, Toby looked at them and said, You were saying something about Hagrid? Harry looked at his closest pals and said, Oh yeah. As we were saying, do you think any of us are going on to his NEWT class? We never really showed enthusiasm for it. Ron responded, That's just it, innit? We were the ones who made the most effort because we liked Hagrid. But he thinks we like the bloody subject. Toby gazed at them with a single, bewildered eye. Is it better for him to listen or to jump right in? Should I take his class? As they sat down, Hermione said, Depends. So it was fantastic to join in. Harry and Ron sat on one side, while Hermione and Toby sat on the other. His class is care of magical creatures. So it's all about magic creatures. You feed them, learn their behaviors and stuff like that. Sounds like fun. Toby said with a smile. It's dangerous, Ron remarked. One year we had a book that would bite us if we didn't rub its bloody spine. I've handled dangerous animals before. Like what? Harry asked, genuinely interested in the kinds of animals seen in Japan. Perhaps there were miniature Chinese dragons similar to those he had read about in books. Like, He scowled as he considered the words he was trying to find. Instead of using the proper English words for them, he was prepared to say jumping green things and big flying not-owl birds. Toads, snakes, cats, hawks, dogs, and bugs, Toby said, his voice weakening very slowly. Now that I think about it, it doesn't sound very impressive. These men didn't have the same animals as their own country. These wizards had worse, the literature said. Hermione booted a laughing Ron and remarked, That's perfectly fine. You can ask McGonagall to take it if you want to. Toby gave a nod. He smiled at them and started taking tiny nibbles of food, saying, Okay. Tell me about the other classes here. Hermione started her lengthy explanation, saying, Okay, there's the core classes data, herbology, potions, history of magic, and charms. Every now and again, Harry and Ron would join in and offer their own remarks. Similar to how the teachers behaved. Following their meal and conversation, McGonagall started distributing timetables while making his way along the Gryffindor table. Because everyone is divided into separate courses based on their OWL grades this year, it was taking a little longer than normal. Here, Harry's year seems to be among the most significant. Hermione easily got into anything she desired. Ancient Runes was her first period, so she hardly said goodbye before leaving. Her hands are already searching for a book in her purse. When Toby's turn came, he asked a lot of questions, to which McGonagall patiently responded. He asked the trio the same questions over and over again. He waited for Harry and Ron after organizing his schedule. Ron said, What do you have, Toby? We have a free period. Toby said, Defense against the Dark Arts. I think I have the book for that. Good luck, Harry said with a sigh. Professor Snape is charge of that class this year. Toby questioned, What's so bad about him? You'll see, Ron remarked. Come on. We'll show you the way. The sixth headmaster glanced at his schedule before turning back to face Draco. So, this is the Ancient Runes classroom? Draco gave a nod. Yep. This will be a good opportunity to increase your English vocabulary. The sixth headmaster repeated, Vocabulary? As he opened the door and entered, Draco groaned and asked, How many words you know? Behind him, the sixth headmaster entered, surveying the entire space. It appeared to be a typical classroom, similar to those at the academy. With various texts on the wall, students were seated at desks facing the same direction. An excellent class to help him study more would be ancient runes. A woman walked up to sixth headmaster in Draco and said, "Oh, it's do good to have you back, Draco. And who might you be? I don't think I've ever seen you in any of my classes." Out of consideration for someone who was older than him, the sixth headmaster straightened his back. "I am sixth headmaster. Transfer student from Japan. It's nice to meet you, sixth headmaster. I am Professor Babbling. Take your seats and we'll get started shortly," she said. The sixth headmaster received the impression that she was a very patient teacher who took excellent care of her classes as a whole. They sat down close to the rear, and Draco gestured for the sixth headmaster to accompany him. He responded gently, as though he didn't want to be seen giving sixth headmaster books. "I can give you some books from previous years if you want. In addition to this year's book as well." The sixth headmaster gave a nod. "Understood." The door opened once more, and a girl with bushy brown hair and Gryffindor colors entered. Draco instantly moaned. He didn't bother trying to hide this. Presuming he didn't need to whisper either, the sixth headmaster questioned, "Who is that?" To the sixth headmaster's perplexity, Draco returned to murmuring, "Hermione Granger." Oh, that explains his whispering. She's such a know-it-all. Thinks she's better than everyone just because she's friend with Harry Potter. The sixth headmaster hesitated, unsure of the word he needed to say. "I heard about Potter." "Is he?" With a sour tone, Draco assisted. "Popular, the boy who lives, the chosen one, ignorant, trouble magnet, need I go on?" "Yeah." Draco's hatred for Harry was clear. Perhaps he ought to watch him. There will inevitably be childish arguments. It didn't seem like too much of a leap to be a trouble magnet. With a contemptuous greeting, the girl sat down in front of them and said, "Malfoy." Draco said in the same icy voice, "Mudblood." Hermione inquired without even looking back, "Did Crabbe and Goyle get replaced by the transfer student?" Of course not, Draco cut in. "He's with me by his own free will." Hermione replied, "Yeah, right." The sixth headmaster heard her roll her eyes. Professor Babbling clapped her hands together and exclaimed, Now. Class is beginning. I'm so glad to see so many familiar faces, and you're all in your seats from last year as well. That makes it so much easier for me." Draco and Granger would be at each other's throats every day if they were to remain in these seats for longer than a week. The sixth headmaster was not anticipating this. As she left Defense Against the Dark Arts, Rin remarked, "I'm not sure I like that Snape guy," despite the fact that she was fully aware that Snape was on her side. It was not necessary to speak or make eye contact. All they knew was that it was a front. It is impossible for a teacher who is notorious for detesting everyone outside of his own home to suddenly stop disparaging the transfer kids. However, it was only absurd. Hannah responded, "Yeah. He's always been like that." Susan shrugged and said, "You get used to it." Rin put on an act that suggested she was anxious about the perspective she expressed, saying, "It was very interesting how he talked. He wasn't very nice to you at all, though. Most would have left or at least shown fear." "Really? Oh. I didn't notice he was trying to scare me," Rin replied. "He was just being mean with all those names. I didn't understand half of them." "And you weren't bothered enough to snap back?" Hannah exclaimed, "Wow. I'm so glad we're friends," with a laugh. "Sure you aren't a brave Gryffindor like your brother?" Rin grinned. "But he did have a point in his teaching," she said, abruptly shifting the topic. "Not saying the incantation does have many advantages in a duel. True. You did so well at the nonverbal jinx, Susan smiled. I never saw it coming. Hannah grinned and said, come on. We can talk about data later. Now, you have potions. We didn't do so well in that class last year, so you're on your own. But I believe your brothers will be there. Because you are, you know. Unless they aren't as smart as you said they were. Rin smiled and nodded. Okay. And I promise they're as smart as I said they were. We can show you the way. We have a free period anyway. Hannah replied. Do you need a book? Rin gave a headshake. She patted her bag and looked down the hall, saying, no. I got one. She was thrilled to see her teammates once more. She gained a lot of knowledge about this location as well. She was able to read and practice a few wand spells because she got up a little earlier than everyone else. In actuality, she looked forward to her potion class. It would greatly increase Konoha's military might if she could employ potions back there. And this is desperately needed while they are in the aftermath of a conflict. Particularly the concoctions that appeared to have therapeutic or other beneficial properties. Okay. Here it is. Have fun, and you better hope that your sense of smell is bad. Hannah told Susan, but he might actually leave a window open. It's a new teacher, remember? Susan grinned as she and Hannah started to move in the opposite direction. Right, I forgot. Anyway, have fun. And don't make your cauldron explode. How did you forget if we just walked out of data with Snape? I don't know. Before entering behind a bunch of Gryffindors, Rin glanced between the entrance and her housemates. Professor Slughorn said, ah. Hello there, to the entire class. Take out your scales and potion kits. Don't forget your copy of Advanced Potion Making. Near the rear of the throne, by the door, came the anxious plea for attention, sir. Rin turned to face the voice and saw that it belonged to a Gryffindor boy with glasses and disheveled black hair. Professor Slughorn was happy to see the Gryffindor and said, yes, Harem boy? I haven't got a book or scales. Or anything. Norse Ron. We didn't realize we'd be able to take the NEWT class, C-. Professor Slughorn pondered, yes. Professor McGonagall did mention. Not to worry. You can use ingredients from the store cupboard, and I'm sure we can lend you some scales. And we've got a small stock of books here, until you can write to flourish and blots. The potions professor strode over to a cupboard in the corner and took out 2 copies of Advanced Potion Making that looked extremely worn. Along with tarnished scales, he presented these to Harry and a redhead youngster, probably Ron. Slughorn continued, now then. I've prepared a few potions for you to look at, as he made his way back to the first floor. He pointed to the cauldron closest to the Slytherin table and said, these are potions you should be able to make after completing your NEWTS. You ought to have heard of them by now. Anyone tell me what this one is? Rin had to get up to see, and her gaze was drawn to a spiky jumble of silver hair rather than the elixir as it should have been. Beside our responsibility is the 6th headmaster. As a Gryffindor girl's hand sprang into the air, she grinned and sat down again. She turned to see Toby seated close to her at the Gryffindor table. He would be there, as if she had any doubt. It's true that he was frequently late. But he was on time when it mattered. Or perhaps he was hauled here on time by one of his new buddies. The girl replied promptly and boldly, Veritaserum. A colorless, odorless potion that forces the drinker to tell the truth. Slughorn nodded and said, very good. Very good. He went over to the Ravenclaw table and onto another pot. As he started to describe it, the girl's hand shot into the air once more. Now, this one here is pretty well known. This demonstration intended supposed to be brief. It's Polyjuice Potion, sir. Rin scowled as she got up to examine it. It appeared repulsive. Excellent, excellent. Now, this one here is, yes, my dear? The girl's hand lifted to the heavens, revealing the answer before he had even finished asking. It's Amarantina. Slughorn appeared pleased. Indeed. It seems almost foolish to ask. I assume you know what it does? She triumphantly explained, it's the most powerful love potion in the world. All of this was noted by Rin, either on the paper in front of her or in her mind for future writing. The girl said, it's supposed to smell like what attracts us the most. So it's different for everyone, as if she were the instructor. If she continued, she might actually do fairly well at it. For instance, I can smell freshly mown grass, new parchment, and... She said, but she didn't finish her idea, which resulted in a brief period of whispers lasting less than 10 seconds. When the whispers subsided once again, Slughorn said, May I ask what is your name, my dear? Hermione Granger, sir. Rin hardly paid attention as Slughorn and Granger discussed Harry and Muggleborn people. She was too preoccupied taking notes. And now, it's time for us to start our work for today. The sixth headmaster caught everyone's attention by launching his hand into the air. Rin guessed it was because they now had an excuse to gaze at him, observing his typical hairstyle and the fact that he was donning a hospital mask. The type typically worn by the ill. Yes, sixth headmaster? He pointed to a little black cauldron on Slughorn's desk and remarked, You have not told us about the potion over there. Ah, yes. Slughorn said, his voice taking on a flying flare once more. This potion, ladies and gentlemen, is a very curious little potion called Felix Felicis. Rin continued to take notes and write things down. Like the way the potions moved, smelled, and looked. It was somewhat difficult to distinguish each of the medications from what she could see in front of her because they were all so different from one another in so many ways. Later in the evening, when she had more time, she would make sure to explore different potions. Draught of Living Death was the name of the elixir they created that day. Slughorn even rewarded the greatest potion maker. Little Felix was theirs to keep. Rin is unable to lie. When she realized she was embarking on a risky assignment, it would be convenient to have the liquid luck. A few drips of it might as well guarantee that everyone survives and that the operation is successful. He did advise using it cautiously, though. Only twice in his life has he utilized it. The best days of my life, he continued. Ernie Macmillan, a Hufflepuff boy, was paired with Rin. Rin would have preferred him to be nicer. In fact, she was impolite if she made a minor error. Even when he would commit the same error. However, she tolerated it. As the three shinobi strolled side by side along the hallway, Toby remarked, So, what did you think or your classes so far? Prior to splitting off to travel together, they had each left potions with their own groups. Rin acknowledged that they were certainly different from the academy. Snape is as mean as they come in defense against the dark arts. And you know Slughorn. The sixth headmaster waved a hand and said, Ma. Mine were pretty straightforward. Ancient Runes was all about looking at a character and translating it. And yeah, potions. Rin nodded in agreement, saying, Yeah. Potions was interesting. The sixth headmaster grumbled, Slughorn is one of those annoying teachers to pick favorites. Besides that, tell me what you found out so far. Rin nodded and said, Okay. I've integrated myself into my house very quickly. These guys are so open and trusting. Toby interrupted, saying, It's not just a Hufflepuff thing, it seems. Same here. They've accepted me very quickly after showing them Minato-sensei's fire tag. The sixth headmaster gave a nod. Good. In Slytherin, they are a bit more wary. But after a run-in with a few Gryffindor kids this morning, it seems I'm not fully a part of their house. What happened? Inquired Rin. Oh. You're the kid they were talking about. Toby exclaimed, gesturing startledly to the sixth headmaster. Man, sorry about that, on behalf of my house. Ignoring the boy, the sixth headmaster turned to face Rin. The sixth headmaster demonstrated for them by forming a semicircle in front of him with his hands. They came up to me and gave me a taste of what it felt like to be in Slytherin. They didn't know I was a transfer student, somehow. And they thought I was a first year. A small group of Slytherins were passing by and almost immediately made a sort of protective barrier. After the Gryffindors left, they said they would report this to Draco and left. Ever since then they haven't seemed wary of me. Yeah. On the subject of Slytherins, I was warned by a few Ravenclaws to avoid them. They are rude to everyone that's not their friend. The only way to not become a victim is to be strong and get them before they can get you. Everyone seems to have the view that Slytherin is the house of evil. Toby thought about it. The sixth headmaster gave a nod. This is good for just this morning. Let us enjoy our lunch and I will write to Minato-sensei as soon as I can. Draco has an owl I could probably use. Got it. Toby smiled. So knowing this bit of information, I can trip you and push you around whenever I want? The sixth headmaster smiled behind his mask as he transitioned from Japanese to English and said, "Try it." Rin positioned herself between the two boys and begged, "Please don't." Toby echoed, raising his voice, "Who's going to stop me?" With his hand reaching for his wand, the sixth headmaster's foot slid back slightly. A gesture the three were all familiar with. It's typically the first thing a shinobi does before fighting. However, they typically reach for a tanto or a kunai. Wizards appear to understand the significance of the pose as well. Hey, hey, hey! What's going on here? That's excellent. The sixth headmaster glanced up at the ancient runes Gryffindor girl. Understanding exactly why she had chosen to approach, he narrowed his eyes in a feeble scowl. Hermione gave sixth headmaster a stern look and stated, "You should head back to your own table." With a gentler expression in her eyes, she continued, "You should too, thank you for trying to help." Toby received a final gaze from the sixth headmaster. And grinned a little when the stare was returned by the Uchiha. They reached a consensus in this way. It was decided that they may step up their acting after that one glance. The underlying fear of going too far is the only thing that could stop them. One cannot be certain of anything they consider typical while on a mission in a foreign country. Young and recently married, Minato Namikaze is essentially a father figure to his three teammates and students. While helping the blonde with a variety of things that came naturally to her, Narcissa discovered this. She had plenty of time to help the guy who led the children in helping her son because Lucius in Azkaban and the Dark Lord were not pressuring her for anything. She once heard him murmuring that it was much safer to provide instructions verbally rather than in writing and delivering them by owl. "Howler," she said. "A howler?" he asked, raising his gaze from the letter. It was inscribed in whichever language he is able to speak. Narcissa surmised that it was an Asian language. After giving a nod, Narcissa proceeded to get one. She returned with a red envelope. In the hopes that he would comprehend, she clarified, "A howler is a way to yell at someone through a letter." Yelling at someone through a letter? That's outstanding. Minato laughed. How do I use it? Just finish writing your letter and put it in here. I'll hire an owl to send it for you. Arigato. With a sort of bow, Minato bobbed his head and returned to writing, a little more assured that his message would be understood. Additionally, Rin and the sixth headmaster might be able to hear it if this howler thing is loud enough. Waving his train ticket angrily, the sixth headmaster declared, "There's no 9 3/4." Toby said, "The platforms are all solid numbers." Minato gave his head a back rub. I know. Malfoy told us to wait here for her." The sixth headmaster sighed, "Well, if she doesn't hurry up, we're going to be late." Rin stated, "We have 10 minutes. We won't be late." Toby yelled, "I found 9, and gestured to the sign that was right overhead. It would be assumed by onlookers that his family was boarding the train at platform 9. Minato laughed and shook his head at his student's silly behavior. "Good job," he said. He was aware that it was an act, but the word act is ambiguous when referring to his squad. They understand when and how to be serious because they have experienced a lot. He may not like it, but they are shinobi who have been honed by war. However, they also understand when and how to get past this and behave like a typical adolescent. When Narcissa showed up, the sixth headmaster approached Toby, perhaps to instruct him to shut talking. Literally showed up. Just a moment before, Minato felt no sign of her. Abruptly, she appeared in front of the brick pillar dividing platforms 9 and 10. "Ah! Mrs. Malfoy," exclaimed Minato, who was relieved to meet their client at last. His crew was informed to stop talking and reassemble as a result. "Apologies for my lateness, I had to make sure my son was ready for the train ride." "That's perfectly fine, madam." The sixth headmaster, clearly dissatisfied with the prospect of arriving a few seconds before departure, requested, "Can you show us to the platform now?" She pointed to the wall she had materialized in front of and said, "Of course. It's just through there." "In there?" Toby asked again. "How is it in there?" "It's a wall." Narcissa said, "Just run into it. I'll take one of you in if you do not trust me." Minato gave a slow nod. "All right. I believe that is my cue to leave. Partner up. And remember the mission." "Hi," the trio said, nodding. Rin approached Narcissa, as Toby and the sixth headmaster stood side by side with their carts in front of them. The two males were frightened as they saw the girls vanish, leaving no sign of them. Rin and Narcissa entered first. Concerned once more, Toby questioned, "Are we going it fit?" The sixth headmaster pushed forward, his mind yelling at him to stop running. "Too late to think about that now, come on." Toby was right behind him, prepared to run him over in the event of an accident. However, they never did. Toby exclaimed, "What is this place?" as he turned to face the only person who understood what was happening. Their customer is Narcissa Malfoy. And a wealthy and influential woman, based on what he has seen thus far. The sixth headmaster, who was just as confused as his companion, said, "English." He said, a little more composed, "Sorry, what is this place?" With patience, Narcissa murmured, "Diagon Alley." She has never before had to go into great depth about all of this. For the straightforward reason that she doesn't communicate with muggles of mudbloods. Therefore, everyone she speaks to is already aware of all of this. Draco was already familiar with this information by the time he was able to speak and ask inquiries. Toby went on to ask, "How many shops are there? How much will all of this cost for the three of us? Can we get our wands first? Is that a floating broom?" The sixth headmaster moved forward, caught the Uchiha by the ear, and pulled him to the ground. "Quiet down, you're drawing too much attention to us." "But isn't that the point? We need people to see us, so we didn't just appear out of nowhere, you know?" "Did you listen to Minato-sensei when he went over the culture of this place? Malfoy isn't in a good standing with the crowds right now. So she needs to be as inconspicuous as possible." Ooh. At last, the sixth headmaster released his ear and turned to face Narcissa, apologizing briefly with a bow. "It's probably best we get your wands and then leave. I can come back another day and buy everything else with your father." The three exchanged glances and grinned in different ways. The thought of Minato being their father appealed to them. It was more than just a cover tale, and it suited. It was a perfect fit for their intimate relationship. As he examined the tea Narcissa had prepared, the sixth headmaster inquired, "So who will we be working with there?" She insisted that it was the best tea she had ever had, even if it wasn't as wonderful as the tea back home. As if intending to drink it later, he drew the cup closer, trying not to reveal the dislike in his eye. The defense against the dark arts professor. She stated. A man named Severus Snape. While you are there, you'll be referring to him as Professor Snape. Professor? Toby repeated the unfamiliar phrase while leaning in the direction of the sixth headmaster. It means sensei. Oh. He'll be fully aware of their mission to help Draco, correct? Replied Minato. Narcissa gave a nod. Indeed. Draco will be aware as well? No, he cannot know. Oh? Why's that? Rin inquired, her scowl displaying worry and perplexity. If Draco knew I hired someone to help him, he'd take it as a personal attack at his pride. He'll think I don't trust him to do the task given to him. The sixth headmaster stated plainly, you don't think he'll be able to do it because it's murder. Why would he be upset about that? Toby grinned and said, Pride, sixth headmaster. Weren't you listening? You know all about pride, don't you? With a defiant gleam in his teammate's eye, the sixth headmaster answered, Oh, I don't know, you tell me, Uchiha. Rin rolled her eyes and said, Not now, boys. Warui, Warui. Gomen Nasai. Before continuing, Narcissa waited for the three to return her gaze. Severus has offered to get you into Hogwarts without question. He has Dumbledore's trust, so feel free to use this to your advantage. So what you're saying, Toby said, is that if we mess up, Snape will cover for us? Yes, that is what I was implying. Great, smiled Toby. Minato inquired impatiently, anything else? Before Narcissa sent the owl to Hogwarts to discuss his students, he wanted to brief his team. Completing their plans. Hogwarts has a very unique social system. Once Rin and Toby gave him a perplexed look, the sixth headmaster reiterated, unique social system. That revolves around these four things called houses. They are determined on characteristics, I believe. Only the Sorting Hat knows who goes where. It has never been wrong in its placement. Minato said, doubt that. It was a hat. Like all humans, it was inevitably going to make mistakes. With a little frown, Narcissa looked at the only other adult present. She didn't know what he had said, but based on his expression, she knew he didn't agree with her. These four houses become your family there. It is rare for friendships outside of the houses to occur. Toby came to the conclusion, so we should go into the same house? But we have different personalities. Rin replied. Before the sixth headmaster could add his thoughts and carry on the discussion, Minato raised his hand. What are these four houses? And what personality does each one have? With his hands behind his back, Draco stood outside the silent data classroom. He was aware of his purpose. He had a gut feeling about it. Professor Snape desired a private conversation with him. He was discovered. He is aware of what the Dark Lord desires from him. Could there be any other explanation? There is no reason to be concerned because he was performing quite well in his studies. It must have been. The boy was startled when the door opened. His shoulders stiffened, but as soon as he saw who had opened the door, he relaxed. Sixth headmaster? However, he was not donning his customary white medical mask. The black material ran down his neck and beneath his shirt, forming a seemingly endless black mask. The shorter lad, unfazed by Draco's response, nodded and took a step back. His voice was heavily accented as he continued, Please. Come inside, Draco. Draco screamed, Where's Professor Snape? He couldn't tell if he was angry or puzzled. It must be related to his transfer student business if sixth headmaster was present. It makes sense that he would be involved since he is both his roommate and the prefect. The youngster replied, stepping back and holding the door open so Draco could see what or who was inside. He's right in here. The other two transfer students faced one another. One has purple marks on her face and brown hair. The other, did he previously have scars all over his face? What's going on here? Draco glared at them, expressing his seriousness and half concern about the other's last name. Rin waved and grinned. "Oh, sorry for startling you," she replied. An instant apology, something Draco observed in most Hufflepuffs. "Nice to meet you, Malfoy-san," Toby said, grinning just as broadly. "I take it he's a Gryffindor? How irritating." "Good. Now that everyone is here." When Draco turned back, Professor Snape shoved him forcibly into the classroom, shutting the door behind him. "Professor Dash," he started as he straightened up and glanced down to see how his robes were doing. He saw that the transfer students were not wearing robes. They had on a strange outfit. Strange even for a Muggle. With a quiet, snake-like hiss, Snape continued, "What we discuss here cannot be told to anyone. Not even your mother. Am I understood?" Before he promised anything, Draco needed to know, what is this about? And why mustn't Mother know? You know how much she already knows. Severus Snape, a Death Eater and Dark Lord spy, has taken the place of the professor. Syllable after syllable came as hard as the last, "am." I understood. Draco. Malfoy. To be honest, Draco was afraid of it. He scurried backward until he struck one of the transfer students, before exclaiming, "Fine. Fine. I won't tell anyone, not even my mother." Raising himself to his full height, Severus walked quickly around the terrified youngster to stand next to the sixth headmaster. He reached into his robes and took out a tiny bottle of clear liquid. "This is Veritaserum. I believe you know what this does." Draco gave a nod. "Are you doing to use it on me?" "No. I'm going to use it on sixth headmaster here." "What?" Draco stepped forward, doing something he was unsure of. Being compelled to speak the truth in any circumstance was unthinkable to him. Even now, he had no idea what was happening. However, why was the sixth headmaster going to be? He was halted by two hands on his arm. He noticed it was the other two as he peered over his shoulder. "How are you two okay with this? Do you dolts realize what is about to happen?" Toby nodded and said, "We do. Just listen, and sit down." Rin kicked a stool over, and Toby sat him down on it with more strength than he appeared to have. Holding out a glass of water, Severus made sure Draco could see the Veritaserum inserted and instantly vanishing into the water. "Now." And the water was gone, drunken by the sixth headmaster, in the speed with which he typically ate meals. Draco waited to see what would happen while perched on the edge of his stool. Then Severus said, "What is your name?" "Sixth headmaster." "How old are you?" 13. The sixth headmaster gave a perplexed look. Did he not mean to say that? He would vouch for the fact that Draco was an anxious boy if he truly saw him. 13 was his age. Still a youngster, barely a teenager. "Who is Draco Malfoy to you?" "My charge." That expression reappeared. Draco glanced at the friends of the sixth headmaster on either side of him. This didn't seem to bother them. In fact, Toby's gaze was so steady that it nearly mirrored that of the sixth headmaster. Rin gave him a quick glance, caught his anxious stare, and grinned. "Are you two really okay with this?" "What does a charge even mean?" he asked the sixth headmaster, momentarily forgetting that he was being forced to provide an honest response. The sixth headmaster shifted in his chair and glanced up at Severus, who was standing up next to him. "A charge is one who I must protect and assist." Assist me with what? Why? As he talked, the sixth headmaster pulled a face, perhaps attempting to contain his speech. Assist you with your mission. It's the job given to me to. As Severus Snape posed the next query, Draco felt a sense of dread gradually become stronger. And what is Draco's mission? To kill Albus Dumbledore. The stool toppled over as Draco leaped to his feet. Once more, two hands seized his arms. Let go of me. How do you know about my mission? Your mother hired us to help you, or to kill in your place. He hesitated, struggling. Then it started up again. Does she not think I can handle it myself? I was chosen to do this. I have to do it alone. She can't just dash. She is your mother, Draco. And she cares about you. It's not easy to kill someone. Rin said. It's not a matter if she doesn't think you can. It's a matter of she wants to protect you from the pain of murdering someone. Draco was still offended by that response and asked, and what do you know of killing? Why does she think a bunch of children can do my job for me? Because we have killed before, the sixth headmaster said, his muscles tight and his eye already closed. Draco paused, surveying the trio surrounding him. You, all three of you. They all three nodded. Severus moved in front of sixth headmaster after giving him another glass. Rin and Toby released their grip on Draco and took a step back before abruptly sprinting toward their companion, their feet moving silently as though they had crossed in a single leap. Now do you understand why you mustn't tell your mother? No. Why can't I tell mother? Rin responded, because she told us not to. Then why did you tell me? They didn't say a word. It was the Veritaserum sixth headmaster, accidentally drank, replied Severus. That tone was familiar to Draco. It was frequently used by his father. He is supposed to take it as fact, but it is a falsehood. He was unsure of how to interpret all of this. Initially, he learns that his mother recruited a younger, foreign, and blatantly questionable group of people to assist him in killing the headmaster. What on earth was she thinking? And the image of the shy, awkward transfer student who adhered to him like glue, the sixth headmaster he knew, is no longer there. A 13-year-old with eyes as dark and frigid as a Death Eater's has now taken its place. Similar to his dad. In addition, there are more of them. The purple-faced Hufflepuff and the scarred Gryffindor. What really happened to sixth headmaster's eye? Asked Draco. It's an odd thing to concentrate on, but he might as well absorb as much information as possible if he was going to be inundated with it all at once. Severus froze at the Japanese muttering and shuffling behind him. When Toby and the sixth headmaster emerged, they were right in front of Draco. They both opened their eyes. Toby's was entirely gone. Closed, and there was nothing to open it. The sixth headmaster had an eye, but it was pierced by a deep scar. The eye itself was oddly colored crimson. Perhaps a consequence of being literally sliced in half like that? A second later, the eyes were covered. Sixth headmaster had lost his eye protecting me, Toby stated. And in return, I gave him my eye. Draco did not anticipate such response. You gave him your eye? Yep. The obnoxious upbeat demeanor was returning. Draco frowned and glared at each of them. Professor, what's your involvement in this? The atmosphere gradually returned to what it was like when he was in front of a class as he said, I'm just keeping an eye on you. He had returned to his role as Dad-Eye Professor Snape. With no more inquiries, Draco pivoted and stormed out of the room. He did, however, hesitate briefly before leaving the room. He heard brief farewells in Japanese as he left. Come on. Don't want to be caught out after curfew. The gentle footsteps of the sixth headmaster followed closely after him. He wouldn't lie, knowing that he had long-term assistance was comforting. He has several suggestions about how to finish this as soon as feasible. And now that he isn't working alone, it might actually happen. Toby, Rin, and the sixth headmaster sat in a circle outdoors in the courtyard. Between them sat an open scroll in 3 volumes. The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection was the one in front of Rin. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them was the one in front of Toby. The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 5, was the one in front of the sixth headmaster. Here's the knockback spell they were talking about in defense against the dark arts. Rin said. The incantation looks to be Flipendo. The wand movement looks like you're knocking something off balance as well. Toby leaned over and asked, Really? Looks like a check mark to me. Before turning the page of his book, the sixth headmaster remarked, Oh, I can teach that one to you guys if you want. I got it down last week. Great. Rin grinned. What spell are you looking at? The sixth headmaster flipped his book over so his companions could read the summoning charm. They typically trained in the Forbidden Forest after finishing their homework, which was due on Monday. However, the shinobi had to reconsider their leisure activities as the classes accelerated and eliminated material that should have been known beforehand. It doesn't work on people, but you can summon something they're touching like their clothing. But anything you summon seems to move at the speed of light. Further the distance, more concentration is required. But the clearer you visualize it, the easier it is. So we can randomly summon each other with this? The Uchiha started to grin. No. Rin and the sixth headmaster both gave him a fierce look. However, Rin burst out laughing. We can't move the speed of light. We'll get hurt. Or worse, expelled. According to Toby, why's that bad? I'll have freedom and I don't have to learn all this wizard stuff. The sixth headmaster responded, If you aren't here, then you can't help Malfoy. Meaning, you failed. And you'll be holding the both of us back if we try to make arrangements to let you in and out. Oh yeah. Now, the summoning charm is on page 64 in the grade 5 book. I suggest studying that. Toby asked Rin, What is one of your electives, anyway? I have care of magical creatures and sixth headmaster has the ancient runes thing. Rin turned to her purse and took out another book, Home Life and Social Habits of British Muggles, saying, Oh. I have Muggle studies. It's all about the normal non-magical civilians here. The first lesson was on electricity. Electricity? Inquired the sixth headmaster. We know what that is. Do the wizards not? Apparently not. They use magic for everything. Lightning, pictures, transportation, and communication. How obliviously stupid. Sixth headmaster. What? After the 3 of them laughed together, the sixth headmaster became solemn once more. So, you all know where we're meeting tonight? Yes. Don't go to the old location, I won't be bringing Malfoy there. That's a little bit of information we'll keep from him. The less he knows about us the better. Rin, Snape suggested one of us learn to shut our mind to magical intrusion. For there are many spells in existence that tamper with the mind, not just read it. Any ideas? Leaning forward, she pointed to the scroll after closing the book. Is that what this note is about? She asked, pointing to foreign terms. Occlumency and legilimency. The sixth headmaster gave a nod. Legilimency is the ability to see into one's mind. Occlumency is the counter to it. That's all he told me. The rest we have to research on our own. Toby nodded, Ooh. Like the Yamanaka clan and a way to block them? I thought there was no way to block it, only dodge. Rin shrugged and said, Well, it might be the same thing. Who knows? I'll look into it later. What will you be doing during that time? The sixth headmaster said, some private lessons with Snape, or a meeting with Malfoy about his next action. Toby, can you ask your housemates anything about a Hogsmeade? He mentioned the next trip he had something planned. The Uchiha nodded and said, a trip? Yeah, I'll ask around about it. The sixth headmaster turned to face his teammates before focusing on Rin. Good. I think that settles everything then? Unless there's something else you'd like to announce, he asked. What is it? She said, I found surveillance tags throughout the Hufflepuff common room this morning. With this topic in particular, one can never be too cautious, even when communicating in Japanese. Tags? Like dash. Yes. Those kinds of tags. Someone else is here? What else did you gather about them? She took out a slip of paper from the textbook and flipped it to the back, saying, I couldn't remove one of them without alerting the owner. But I did draw a copy here in the corner of my notes. Although there was a lot of writing, the rectangle in the corner was clearly visible. Good job, Rin. Toby can study that while you keep alert. I can. You can and you will. You have the best chance at understanding foreign chakra tags with how much you and Minato-sensei talk about it. In answer, he moaned. How come I got 2 jobs on top of everything else we're already doing? Because one job is easy. Just ask what is Hogsmeade and what happens there. They're going to tell you and I know you'll remember. The sixth headmaster responded. And I already stated the reason for the second job. Toby crossed his arms and sighed, it seems to me that Rin and I are doing most of the hard work for you. Why's that? The abrupt switch to English was observed. Back to being childish, now are we? They were accompanied. I thought you were such a big shot, you could handle this on your own. Who is it? Toby looked at Rin as though sneering at her and said, Hufflepuff. The sixth headmaster frowned and said, don't change the subject, Uchiha. He detested acting this way. It was really dumb. Leave Rin out of this. Oh, so now you care about her? The girl asked, what's going on, Rin? She held a book tightly in her arms and had curly light brown hair. Rin took her turn to glare, saying, they're just fighting. Again. Over what? The sixth headmaster yelled, it's none of your business, and quickly regretted it. For a minute, the Hufflepuff froze and winced. It's just, I wanted to help you guys out. Seeing as Rin has been studying really hard in Dash. It's his fault Rin is overworking herself. He doesn't even look sorry. Toby said. How? Inquired the girl. The sixth headmaster reiterated, pretending to struggle in his tough act, it's none of your business. When they find themselves in a similar circumstance, all Slytherins behave in this manner. It was pitiful. He detested the next section even more. The physical flare and exit are striking. It is if my friend is hurting. I thought you were her brother, the Hufflepuff exclaimed, shocking the sixth headmaster. He rose swiftly, his garments compelling him to move more expressively. All I do is ask her to help me with some homework. Is that really such an evil thing to do? Toby chipped it, saying, you make her do all of it. Rin and the sixth headmaster both got to their feet and turned to face the Gryffindor. Ever since you became friends with Malfoy you've only gotten worse. Toby said. Which, from the standpoint of an outsider, makes sense. What would Minato say about this? The sixth headmaster waited a few beats before answering. He isn't here. Leave him out of it. And at last he was free to go. He initially believed that it would be enjoyable to engage in these outdated, juvenile fights anytime someone was around. He retracts it. He concluded that this was all for show and petty after witnessing the relationships between Gryffindor and Slytherin and Draco's impact on others. He cannot possibly make a mistake in the eyes of the rest of the school. But continuing to do this was really exhausting. His next letter will be a complaint to Minato sensei.